You're listening to the Moody Mommies podcast.
Audio warning. You may or may not hear kids screaming and yelling in the background, or us screaming or yelling at them to keep it together. We're on.
It's time to get moody.
And I'm Jessica.
And I'm Vanessa. What are we going to talk about today, Jess?
Today we're going to talk about
Smishmortions.
Starts with an A. Rhymes with smishmortion.
Starts with an A.
So this has been a pretty heavy topic in the recent weeks.
Totally. It's very controversial.
Yeah, and we've been kind of making light of it, and in our conversations you'll see that, you know, it's hard because we're not serious women. We kind of joke about everything, no matter how serious the case is.
Yeah.
I mean, even still, this is a topic that has touched us in one way or another. So what we did was we reached out to a couple mom groups and got some stories so that we could hear how real women feel about, you know, abortions, having them or
experiencing all of the emotions that are attached to being put in the situation of having to make this choice or not being able to make the choice when you wanted to make the choice. It's a lot of different things.
It is a lot of things. And of course, so mostly we're going to read a couple stories, but we also have two guests, one who is pro-choice, my friend Brianna, and I'm going to apologize in advance because we are huge assholes when it comes to talking about anything. So, I mean, it is serious to us. We did make a big joke about it, so, you know, if you get offended easily, you might not want to listen to that conversation. You can skip through it. But we're also going to talk to my cousin-in-law who's pro-life and hear where she's coming from and why she thinks that that's important.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't up to speed, we wanted to explain to everybody about a heartbeat bill. So a heartbeat bill or fetal heartbeat bill is a controversial form of abortion restriction legislation in the United States, which makes abortions illegal as soon as the embryonic or fetal heartbeat can be detected. So
how far is that in? Like 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
A fetal heartbeat can be detected at about 6 to 7 weeks of pregnancy, but may not be detected until 12 weeks gestation when a droppable fetal monitor is used. Many women who are pregnant remain unaware of their pregnancies at 6 weeks from their last period.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, most women who have an abortion do so after 6 weeks.
Right.
So that's what the big controversy is.
Right, because it's like, okay, you wait the 4 weeks until your next period comes, and so, like, you can't really know before that.
Right.
Even if you try to take a home pregnancy test, like, a lot of times it doesn't even show up, like, as positive until, like, 5 or 6 weeks.
Right.
So you really have...
So a lot of women, it's very upsetting because there's definitely lots of different situations that you could be in where if you find out and you're already past that stage where there's a heartbeat and you're stripped of your choice, it's, you know, a lot of people are getting really, really upset about that.
And then so, like, thinking about, like, one of the stories that I'm going to read, it has to do with somebody who got pregnant when she was a teenager. Like, when you're that age, like, and you're not working and you have to pay for this abortion, like, cash, like, here you go, like, where are these kids gonna get money from? You know, it doesn't just, like, show up like, okay, cool, I have $300 or however much it costs. Like, they have to figure out a way to get that money, and sometimes they can't do it, like, in 1 week. It takes some time.
Definitely.
So it's really difficult to say like one way or another, especially when we start looking into, well, what is it that they actually do during abortions?
Right.
And that's where I think it gets really gray.
Yes. It gets a little difficult when you start to dig into the different procedures. So we looked into that a bit, and we're going to share that with you guys.
Right. And of course, like, we're not experts. We're just looking this stuff up, Googling and finding whatever information we can and trying to get that information to you guys. And a lot of you probably already know this stuff and are better versed than we are. So if you have any insight on this too, like, let us know, like, so we could know more.
Yeah, correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah. Right. But Vanessa, go ahead and what do we got?
We know that there is an option that is the abortion pill. And the process is in a doctor's office, the patient swallows a pill during the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. The drug causes the embryo to detach from the uterus lining. 2 days later, the patient returns to the doctor's office to take a second drug. That causes contractions needed to expel the embryo. Within 2 weeks, a third appointment is required to confirm the abortion is complete. So, that's
like the one that that less people have a problem with, right? It's just kind of like, all right, in and out, like, take this pill, go home, come back, we'll give you another one, and then next time we'll make sure that you're clear, your uterus is clean.
Everything's out. Yes.
So
I guess it's like the least involved one.
Right. So it's more, so what's the morning after pill? That's just like, okay, I had unprotected sex, let me take this, and it makes me get my period right away?
I think it's if there's any chances that there was,
conception,
sperm getting into an egg, you're taking a pill that will, like, defeat all of that. Like, I guess.
Okay.
Right? Like, it has to be. Let's look
so
that
I wonder.
up.
Yeah, we will. But I wonder if maybe we could ask Vanessa this. If that's also something that they're against, because it's kind of like a super early, kind of would be an abortion too if you were pregnant, right? Okay.
Yeah. It's a little emergency, like, oh no, I think I kind of, whoops.
Well.
So the next option is aspiration or suction.
Done up until 12 weeks, right?
Okay, it's done after 10 weeks, commonly done around 12 weeks. Can be done up to 16 weeks. Surgical procedure. So this one is basically a vacuum procedure.
Okay.
Where they put you on a light anesthesia and take the embryo out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like little suction, little whatever's in there.
Yep.
And as far as I know, I think that this is as legal as we can go in California, like up to the suction process. And if you miss the window for this, then you can no longer get an abortion in California.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. Could be wrong.
So in California, you only have up until 16 weeks.
Yeah. That's why we're going to get into this later with Bree. That's why she said that she would have had to gone out of state.
Right. It all makes sense. Okay, so the next option is the D&E, which is a dilation and evacuation. It's done after 16 weeks. It's a 2-day combined medical and surgical procedure. Uses a synthetic dilator called, doesn't matter what it's called. So yeah, that's the next option.
Okay, so then basically, so there's kind of two more, but at this point, I mean, there might be other ways that people do it, but it seems like after the baby's already 16 weeks, I mean, you guys, if you've had a baby, you know how pretty formed that is. They have all their limbs.
You are, yeah.
Yeah, like they have all the limbs, the heart's beating, the brain's like pretty much all in there. You can tell the gender. There's just so many. It's like a person now
Yes.
at this point. I don't personally know anyone that at this point is still like, oh yeah, you should you should have a miscarriage at that point once the baby is larger. But
An
I
abortion.
do. Oh yeah, an abortion. An abortion at this point. Most people are, if you catch it early, like, cool, make your choice.
Right.
But it is really intense, and basically you can't have a live baby, right? They have to kill this. What are they called?
Explain it to me the way you did. Yeah. It was
From what I understand is that a fetus can't be born alive, so they have to make sure before they do the abortion that it's dead inside of you first. I think one of them, they put some kind of chemical to like kill them, or they put something to like kill their brain, stop their heart, so that way it's for sure the fetus is dead. And then one of them, they put you into kind of like a preterm labor, and you have to like push the baby out and basically have like a stillborn. And then another one is they break the baby up inside of you and then just like take it out piece by piece, which sounds insane because those little limbs are just weird.
yeah.
It gets really gray, definitely. I mean, we want you guys to form your own opinions on what you think we as women should have. Like, do you think we should have the option to choose, or do you just think like, no, like once
You get pregnant, you gotta have that baby.
Mm-hmm. There's no way out.
There's no turning back. You open those legs, you gotta pay for it now.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see you guys.
Yeah, so we have 4 anonymous stories, and you want to get started? Let's do this first one. I sent these women a couple questions and had them answer them. This first one kind of just was straight to the point, so I have the question and the answers, whereas the other ones are going to be more in story form.
Story form.
Mm-hmm. So I will ask, and Vanessa's going to answer as if she were
This woman
Mm-hmm.
with this experience.
Okay, so she has a little quick thing.
A little bio, I guess. And it says, I had an abortion as an adult after I already had 3 kids because I was ready to be done. My husband was not ready to be done. So this was a continuous issue. Ultimately, I made the decision myself, which I felt entitled to do. And my husband eventually accepted it. I hope. For me, I finally wanted to focus on my career and was done with maternity leave and pumping.
All right, so our questions were, how old were you when you started your family?
Says, I got married for the first time at age 22, had first kid at 24, second marriage at age 32, and started having more kids at age 34.
And how many years are your children apart?
Ages 13 years, 3 years, 1 year, all planned pregnancies.
Were you taking any birth control or taking any measures not to get pregnant?
At the time I got pregnant by accident, I was not taking birth control, but intended to call and make an appointment to get an IUD within the next few weeks. We just weren't having sex very much lately because of babies, but it didn't occur to me to worry about it.
And what were your conversations like with your husband about continuing to grow the family?
At first, I just said, we aren't keeping this baby, right? Because I just assumed he would be on the same page. I was surprised when he said he wanted to keep it. I could see that it made him sad emotionally. So I said I would think about it to placate him. But really, I always knew. So I guess I pretended to think about it for a week. So then I was nauseous and tired, and it was making it so hard for me to work and care for other kids, which in turn made me cranky. So after 1 week, I said, I've thought about it, and there's no part of me that wants to keep this baby.
So how long after your last child did you become pregnant?
About 17 months.
So how did you come to your decision?
I just knew I was done having kids and wanted to move on with my post-baby life. My husband didn't have much choice, but had to accept it, even though I made efforts to take his desires into consideration.
And how far along were you when you found out?
5 to 6 weeks. Abortion at 8 weeks.
And how old were you?
37.
Were your other children aware?
My 13-year-old was aware. She understandably doesn't want any more siblings, so I know she would support my decision. I treated it like an educational opportunity to teach her about the abortion procedure options, which myself didn't know about till then. I let her know this is always an option, not a stigma.
Did you have any support with your choice?
My 13-year-old supported me. My husband reluctantly supported me. We didn't tell anyone else.
Did your relationship struggle or change at all during this time or since?
My husband was sad and distant for a few weeks, but I think we are okay now.
And how are you feeling with your decision?
Extremely happy. I love my life as it is right now.
Okay, so that was
An anonymous writer.
to one of my Facebook mom groups.
Yeah.
So what do you think about all that? Like, should we unpack anything? Like, I think it was interesting that, it wasn't like, oh, I don't have any money, I don't have any this situation. It was more just like, dude, I have 3 kids, I don't want any more.
Yeah.
And I think that's valid, it's a lot. And she said that she had an appointment to get an IUD. And that, I think, is also another common thing. I know a few kids who are the product of, oh, my mom was about to get her tubes tied or whatever. And she shows up and they're like, oh, we can't do it because you're pregnant.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes you just don't, like, time just gets away from you. And yes, like, you want to tell everybody, well, be safe, or you're being, you should be taking care of your body and knowing when you're fertile and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, like, it really is hard. And like, from my experience, like, I'm never even really, until I'm like at my fertilist, otherwise it's kind of like, we do it, we don't.
Yeah.
So one of my friends was like, she was not about birth control. It was just kind of like, live your life. And luckily, like, she didn't get pregnant any other time, because she was really like, oh yeah, I just watch, like, watches the calendar pretty much and sees when it's okay to do. I'm like, but how do you control yourself? I feel like when I'm fertile, my body's like, this is happening right now. This is happening. So I don't know how, if I didn't have birth control, like, what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What else do you think about what she had to say?
I think it's interesting. I think I don't know. I think it's pretty cool that she had her daughter to support her like that and share that with her, and like she said, turn it into a lesson about her options.
Yeah, and like, if this is, like, you see what I'm going through now, so if this isn't a situation you want to be in, then make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Right.
And especially going over, like, the different procedures like we just did a little while ago.
Yeah.
I did email her back to ask her a little bit more about how that went, but she didn't respond to me, so that's fine. But I am really grateful that she did share this story with us because, yeah, when I think about it, I usually think of people who are in trouble or in a dire situation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more when we talk to Vanessa. I feel like the whole rape discussion comes up so much with, like, you should, if you are raped, like, you should be allowed.
Right.
So just because...
It's rape and incest that they always mention.
Right.
So, geez, how common is incest?
I mean, Alabama, I guess. I don't know about them southern states. I'm just kidding. I actually don't know anything about
We don't.
those.
We're not going to judge.
But yeah, like how, okay, so let's say, yes, they get the green light. Like, you were raped, you checked a rape kit, fine, approved, fine, incest, approved. Even though those cases are also not approved. But, okay, just because I'm, a 37-year-old woman and I already have 3 kids and I don't want any more, but I ended up pregnant, I have to have a baby because I'm married?
Yeah.
There's no option for me? Like, I have to struggle mentally, everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, it's my body, it's my life. Why can't I have a say of what's going to happen with it?
Mm-hmm.
So I get it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, too, that her husband was like, no, we're just going to have another baby.
Right.
And she was like,
the hell we are.
Yeah, but I'm glad that it seems like it turned out well, and
yeah,
everybody learned a lesson. I'm sure she has her birth control now. She's working on things with her husband.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for her.
Yeah. Should we get on to story number 2?
Story number 2.
Story number 2.
Right. I'm gonna read this one, and then I'll let you read the next. So, let me start. When I was 16 years old, I became pregnant by my high school boyfriend. We had been dating since we were 13, lost our virginities to each other, and I'm sure we felt like we were going to be together forever. The thing was, I was obsessed with keeping an innocent reputation. I didn't want anyone to know I was having sex. How in the world could I explain a pregnancy? My boyfriend was very much in love with me, and when we found out, I feel like he was nervous but hopeful for our relationship and where it was going. I, on the other hand, had decided that being a teen mom was not for me. I wasn't ready to be talked about, and I was very immature still. My mom had given me the sex talk before, and I was well aware of my options, but I still didn't feel like I wanted her to know this about me. I wanted to stay her sweet little girl. So who was I going to tell about this? I found a place that would do an abortion for me, and I told my boyfriend about it. I asked him to talk to his older sister about it since neither one of us was driving, and at the time, we'd need a ride there. Time went on, and she never called me, and we really didn't speak about it much. Eventually, I decided I'd call her myself, and apparently he never mentioned anything to her. Even though he didn't express to me, I know deep down he didn't want me to go through with it. I made another appointment, and she picked me up. Instead of taking me to the clinic, she had us sit down and discuss what choices we really wanted to make. At this point, I was pretty annoyed because my body started to change and I didn't want to miss my window. After the conversation, she agreed to take me to have the procedure done. By the time I had the abortion, I was already 12 weeks along. And the clinic was giving me a lot of funky vibes and guilting me, but I made my choice. I wasn't researching pregnancy, so I had no idea what was really going on inside my body. In retrospect, that's just about out of the first trimester, and it wasn't so much just an embryo anymore. To be honest, I didn't want to know more. I don't remember much after that, except for being extremely nauseous afterwards. I had 0 regrets. We continued to date on and off for a number of years, but never talked about what happened. We just pretended it didn't. When it was time to go off to college, our relationship had come to an end. I was ready to meet new people, and he had a lot of growing to do as well. In the end, he was holding on to the relationship more than I could or even wanted to. Years later, we spoke again when I was in my partying stage and having the greatest time of my life. For some reason, as I was talking to him, I blurted out, "Could you believe we almost had a baby?" And really laughed it off because at that time I could not imagine having children. Well, I was pretty surprised when he sounded pretty down about it and told me that was the biggest regret of his life. It made me feel pretty guilty because in the end, I never really considered his feelings. I just did what I wanted for myself. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Our relationship was toxic, and I couldn't imagine it turning out well for anyone. I was too young, and I'm so thankful I gave myself the opportunity to grow as a person and develop individuality. Selfishly, if I would have kept the baby and gave it up for adoption, which, by the way, I'm sure my family would have never let happen and convinced me to keep it. But for argument's sake, let's say I did give it up. Knowing myself, I'd wonder every day where that baby is, if they made it to a good home, are they circulating foster homes, what they look like, will I ever see them? Always wondering all of that, and I think that would have made me mentally unstable. As far as I know, my old boyfriend still doesn't have any children, and a tiny part of me feels bad for taking them from him. After my partying days were over, I finally became serious with someone new. After about a year, I became pregnant again. I ran out of birth control and decided to risk it. So, here's my consequence. This time I was less sure of myself because I really loved this guy, and the thought of having a family with him didn't seem so bad. But it really was early in our relationship, and I didn't want to be the only one thinking this was a good idea because I truly wasn't sure it was. What made this decision a little tougher was quite a few people around us were also having children. Did I want to join the mom club? Is 2 abortions too many? Am I a bad person for even considering this? If I have a kid now, will this derail everything I worked for? And again, what will everyone think of me? This relationship isn't brand new. Maybe we do have a chance with the kid. After a few short weeks, we decided together that this wasn't the right time for us, and we wanted more time to be the 2 of us before we became a family. This made me worry because my last relationship fell apart after the procedure, and maybe this guy isn't as sure about me as I am about him. A million things went through my mind, but I wanted to believe it would work out. I had the procedure done with no issue, and again, just repressed the memory, and he and I never talked about it. It just felt awkward, and there was no turning back now, so why dwell on it? Guilting myself or him would only put us in a bad place. We made a promise that if it ever happened again, we would definitely keep it, and there'd be no question. At this point, I had gone on birth control again and stayed on top of it because I wanted to be sure we made the decision to start a family, not just be thrown into it and be faced with the option to say, I'm scared, magically erase it. The 2 of us later married and had 2 children. I don't know if having the abortion made a difference because I think we would have been decent parents regardless, but wanting to have the kids definitely made pregnancy easier and my mind clearer. I can't go back and change anything, but I'm very happy considering my circumstances. I'm so fortunate we still have some sort of control of our lives as far as reproduction goes. Fortunately, I'm not a rape victim who has had to make a terrible choice, but I'm still a person, albeit maybe I could have made wiser choices. I still was able to make them for myself, right or wrong, and I would hate for that choice to not be available for my daughters if they face with it. Hopefully they won't, but you never know. Thanks for reading my story, and let me know if you have questions. All right, what do we think? What do we feel there?
So many emotions. I think what she said in the end is very valuable. You know, it's when you know you're not ready for something, it's nice to have the option. And you're human. You make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah.
You're not on top of things. And I think that's the only way you can say it is we're humans. We're not perfect.
Right. I want to play devil's advocate, but I don't have a lot of view for where a pro-life person might come from.
Right.
But like when your partner, even like in the first story, isn't on the same page as you, like, is that okay for you as a woman to make that decision alone? Like, that's really tough, you know, if this guy is like, well, it's my baby too, and you're just telling me no, you don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword because it's like, well, are you gonna carry it? Are you gonna miss work? Are you gonna nurse it? Are you gonna, you know, it's just so many things, and the answer to all of those questions are like, he can't do those things, you know, all on his own. He can't grow that baby, so what do what do you do?
Yeah. But, I mean, doesn't have the choice to grow the baby.
Right.
There's not like a choice on the table for him to be like, okay.
So then
I'll do
why
it.
should he be able to tell you about your choices? Is like,
Yeah.
you know, that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
that's what I said. It's like either way you put it, like it's kind of unfair,
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah, and it sucks that, like, you know, she is like, yeah, it's like such a good decision, and the guy's just like, that's the
I regret
biggest.
that.
Yeah.
He like lives with it every day, like in a sad way.
Yeah.
I mean,
We both just shrug our shoulders, like, what are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?
oh man.
But what do you think about the second part where, okay, she's with this guy for a year, everyone else is having kids.
I mean, but they weren't ready for that at
Yeah.
that moment of time. And I feel like if you're in doubt and you have all of these reasons, like I feel like a lot of reasons people do it is, I hear, is like financial reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't afford a kid. And I think it's really wise of them to be thinking that far ahead and just planning and knowing that it's a lot more than just financially providing for a kid. If you want to raise a kid right, you want to give them more than money. You want to give them your presence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not in that right state of mind in that point of life, like the second story, you know, she's 16 years old, and do you really think she wanted to take on like being a mom at that age? And
Yeah, and she said she went to college later, so she probably wouldn't have even got to
never
go to college.
had those choices, those opportunities, because she would have been making all of her choices for now her child. So
Right.
it's tough. And like I said, we could all be a little bit more responsible sometimes, but do sometimes some of us slack off? Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, that it's tough.
What was scary, she said, was the first one, like, ruined their relationship, but I feel like it probably wasn't even that, because when you're in school, like, you're most likely going to break up with your boyfriend.
Right.
Like, whether or not you...
After high school, you're
Yeah.
just like going to part ways and like
Yeah.
grow up, you know? And
Yeah.
I think you should. And that's why it's so funny, because like looking back at my high school life, like I was always like stuck on a boy, like one specific boy,
Yeah,
and gave
me
him
too.
all my high school years. And it's just like, why did I do that? You know, I should have just been like,
Well, I just didn't stay with a
single.
specific boy. But, I mean, mainly I did. But on the low, I didn't.
on the low low.
On the low, I didn't.
But you know, it's like that's another thing. It's like we shouldn't be taking ourselves so serious at such a young age, because it's like we have the rest of our life to do that.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes a lifetime to grow, you know?
Yeah. So I could see how she would be afraid that, like, okay, well, if I do this again, is that going to instantly doom this relationship?
Right. The fears of it.
Yeah, but I'm glad it didn't, and it seems like it gave them a chance to develop as a couple.
Yeah. Something
And-
to bond on, you know?
And even if they didn't, like, necessarily bond on that, it just gave them time to, you know who each other are, and not just be like, okay, we're parents now. Because, like, how different is our relationships now that we're parents?
Yeah, totally.
Like, before we had the kids, it was so different, right? Like, I'm sure you and Joey were totally different people before
definitely.
Zoe was born.
Mm-hmm.
And to be only dating for 1 year, and then all of a sudden,
You're going to turn into mom and dad now. Yeah.
then you lose. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know some people do work through it. They manage to figure out, like, it doesn't matter that we've only been together a year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we were meant to be parents.
Yeah.
That's what our relationship is. But then what happens when your kids are gone? Like, what are you now?
Yep. True.
Okay, I don't know. Do we have anything else? Do you have any other thing to say about that story?
I think I'm glad she made the choices that she made, because her life is where it should be right now, you know?
Yeah. Hopefully she's still got 2 kids now, and it doesn't seem like it bothered her
Yeah.
continuously.
It's good.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to story number.
Okay. So it says, growing up, I was so anti-abortion. I always thought I would never use it as a way of birth control. In February of 2006, I had my son. The father and I weren't together and hadn't been since I found out I was pregnant. I started seeing someone in April of 2016. It was kind of a situation where for the longest time I wasn't sure if we were even dating, but it was nice too. There was no pressure on meeting each other's kids or seeing each other all the time. Then in August, all of a sudden, we were with each other when I was off of work and he had off. Going out all the time when we didn't have our kids. But for some reason, in the back of my mind, I always thought he liked a friend of mine more than me. I thought, you know what? You're getting laid. Who cares? Well, that's when God was like, I'm going to throw some real shit at you. I had been working at US Cellular and my 90 days were up at the call center on November 1st. We were supposed to meet a certain sales quote that was never told to us beforehand. On my birthday, October 20th, we were out drinking and I couldn't get drunk to save my life. And I was drinking and I had to make up for the year before because I was pregnant. Thinking back, I sound like I had a drinking problem, but I swear I mostly was the designated driver than drinking. But that's what happens when your dad gets hit by a drunk driver on two separate occasions. A friend of mine joking around said, the last time you were like this, you were pregnant. I brushed it off. Then on October 31st, the doctor comes in and says, I'm not sure whether to congratulate you or not, but you are pregnant. On November 1st, they let my whole entire training class at work go. On November 2nd, I told the guy I was dating that I was pregnant. He asked what I wanted to do. I said, I'm not sure. I know I'm not ready for another baby so soon. My son isn't even a year yet. I just lost my job. I know you don't want any more kids. And I know that deep down, I couldn't give this kid up for adoption. And not being able to see them or take them, if that makes sense. He said, I know how you feel about abortion, but I feel like that is the option that we have. Through my tears, I asked him, would you hate me if I did? Looked at me with this shock and said, how can you ask me something like that when you are the one to go through it? I told him, I don't have a selfish bone in my body, and this right here is me being selfish. I don't have the means or the capability to take care of another child, and I'm being selfish by not wanting someone else to raise them. He hugged me and said, I have and never will be able to hate you. I just hope that you won't hate me for suggesting it. I said, I can never hate you. On December 7th, I walked into the clinic and they did an ultrasound. I looked at the nurse. I asked her, do you hate me for doing this? She looked at me like she looked into my soul, knowing that I needed someone to tell me that they wouldn't hate me because I had already started to hate myself. She says, sweetie, I could never hate you for making the hardest decision of your life. She kissed me on the forehead and stayed with me until I was asleep. People think this decision is so easy and you will forget it when you walk out the double doors. I held on to that pregnancy test for months to remind myself what I did. I had my friend throw it off a bridge because I thought it would help me forget somehow. It didn't. There were only a few people that knew about it. Otherwise, no one really knew. Not even my parents or even my brother. They still don't. I think once I do tell them, it will become my defining moment. You see, I am a very open book. You ask me anything and I will tell you, but this I kept quiet. I don't regret it. I'm honestly ashamed of myself not because I had one, but because I thought so horribly of myself for having an abortion. No woman should feel ashamed for making one of the hardest decisions she will ever have to make in her life. No woman should make this decision alone. So before you go protest those clinics, bash those women who have had an abortion, I want you to sit down with one of these women, have a conversation with them. Don't judge them for why they had one, but talk to them. Find out their story. People are so quick to pick up a picket sign and stand out there and say how wrong it is. As she walks into the doctor's office and you scream names at her, you don't think she hasn't thought those of herself already? Instead of judging her, holding her as she walks out of the doors, hold her and tell her everything will be okay. It's okay that it wasn't the right time for you. Always remember there is only one true judge, and that is God. He may have sent your baby a little earlier than you wanted, but he will send him back when you're ready. God forgives, and so will your baby.
Yeah, that's interesting that she said that, you know, when you're ready, they'll send him back.
Yeah.
For you.
It's a good way of thinking. Because I know a lot of women who do experience this. They live with a lot of guilt and shame and what if and wonder, and I'm pretty sure that's hard to kind of swallow and deal with. I'm sure as time goes on, maybe, but I don't know. I've never had to experience this before. I don't.
She seems like she had a lot of guilt and really questioned if this was the right choice
thing to do. Yeah.
And the other two were just like, no, this is
I
what
want
I want
this.
to do.
Mm-hmm. This is what I'm doing. I want this to happen because I definitely don't want this. And yeah, she struggled with it, and it's hard because everyone's story is so different, you know. Everyone's at different points of their life of what they want to accomplish career-wise, financially, just every stage that life unfolds for us. And like I said, if you sometimes aren't planning things correctly because our hands are full enjoying life and things slip through the cracks, literally, then, you know, and now you have to make this decision is this okay to add this to my life? Is it the right time? Yeah. Can I do this? So,
and then she even felt like everybody hated her. And
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the shame of it. It's just, I'm sure it's a lot to deal with, and the struggle of, you know, the aftermath.
Yeah, so it's interesting that she just really was conflicted.
Yeah.
And feels now a lot of guilt for what people do to other women about having to make that choice, because this was something that really haunted her.
And putting the guilt on them on top of what they're already feeling in their own head.
Right. Like, okay, not everybody feels guilty. Some people are like, cool, I did it.
I mean, some people do attach a lot of feelings to it.
Yeah. Which I think is, I mean, valid. I mean, either way, it's valid. Like,
right.
Your mental space is where it is. And, you know, she wasn't ready. She already had a kid too. And this was somebody that was like a casual date as well. Not somebody that she necessarily wanted to have a relationship with, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were in a very uncommitted, like, are we even together? Like, does he like my friend? Like, you know, so it's just weird.
Yeah, that's pretty awkward.
Yeah.
When their like friend is involved too.
Yeah. I would just like cut either one of them loose at that point. It's like, okay, I'm either going to keep my friend or keep the guy, you know?
With the guy.
Yeah.
The guy.
Guys are replaceable. How long have I been friends with this girl is a real question.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like really different too, because this guy is kind of like, oh my God, I could never hate you. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
AKA
totally support.
Cut me loose. Don't make me responsible for a kid. Whereas, you know, with the second one and the first one, the guy was, I mean, I guess these are relationships, whereas this other guy is not her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Is more like, yeah, do what you gotta do. And those guys were like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yep.
So
putting that extra guilt on them. Yeah,
exactly. But it's funny that the women who didn't have the support from the guy was like, don't do it, I want to have this baby, are the ones that don't regret it.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that was like, I don't hate you, I know this is a hard choice, she just, took it heavier than the other two did.
Yeah. Interesting.
But I mean, like she said, she was pro-choice before. I mean, pro-life before. I get those phrases confused.
They're so confusing. I don't even say them because I can't even try.
I was trying to explain, talking to Ernie about the topic the other day, and I was trying to say something different, but I kept saying the same thing. And I was like, yeah, the pro-choice, or no, the one that, I just couldn't explain it right. I'm like, I'm saying the same thing. Forget it.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Let me Google it and read it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always easier.
I wonder if she were to be faced with the situation again, if she would still be like, I did it once, I could do it again. Or if it would be more like, okay, nope. I gave myself one pass.
I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I got to keep it this time. It's a tough call. Really tough call.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
okay. Well, we have one last write-in. And this one I really wanted to get as a phone call because it's so complicated. But, not everybody's ready to speak on this in their own words because
it's a touchy subject. And I'm sure when even the word is mentioned and if you've experienced it, it's like, oh, it brings up those feelings again. Mm-hmm. So, we've asked a few women to come on and share their stories themselves, and they weren't as ready as they thought they were.
Yeah. So we weren't just let down once. A couple people were like, yeah, I'll talk about it. And then when it came time to record, they were just like, I can't do it. Which is fine.
It's okay. We get it.
We still love you. You're still in our hearts. Your story's still in our soul. Anyways, okay, so let me get to this one because I don't know how much of a drag us reading is. So without further ado, our last write-in. When I was younger, middle school, high school, I felt abortions were wrong. I even wrote a speech about it for a class. When I was 20, I had my first baby, and about 4 months after she was born, I found out I was pregnant again, the week of my 21st birthday. I made the decision to have an abortion. I had already decided not to go back to school. I switched to a new job that had me taking my new baby out at 3 a.m. so I can be at work by 4. I had a car payment, rent, and could hardly afford that. I had a partner who didn't work, who would not help with my baby at all, and I felt like I would not be able to take care of myself plus 2 others. I struggled to take care of one for her first 2 years, so I think I made the right decision, but at the same time, it emotionally hurt me. Well, my boyfriend knew that I was going to have an abortion, but he didn't go with me or say anything. So she basically got no support from him. Just kind of like, all right, do what you're going to do. Yeah. I have a lot of feelings about this guy. So you guys, I'll be grunting throughout the whole article.
This one's a little personal, okay? It's fresh off the press.
It is. I know. I just put everything together for this woman, and
so the storyline is pretty fresh and it's cutting right now.
Oh, it's cutting me right now. So I didn't feel like I made a mistake right away after the abortion. I felt out of it for a few days after. Then I snapped out of that and felt bad. I was depressed for a long time after. I think I was about 8 weeks pregnant when I had the procedure. So this is about her depression. I felt a lot of guilt and I made a lot of decisions thinking it was what I deserved. I disconnected myself from a lot of people and would find many excuses to not do things with people, and I didn't discuss any of this with anyone for a very long time. As a mom, I honestly felt bad when I looked at my daughter, and I would get upset when other people would have opinions on my choice as a mother. I snapped at my sisters for any remarks that they had, whether it was about what I was feeding her or about how much she talked. I even broke up with a new guy I was dating because he had something to say about what I was feeding her. So yeah, it sounds like she just really pushed everyone away.
She was angry at herself.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think about how she felt about her daughter? Like, I feel like she really became like super mama bear about the baby that she does have. You know, like, oh shoot,
nobody tell me anything. I don't want to hear any suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
tips, or anything like that.
Like, she just wanted to sit in her choices and her decisions.
Yeah, it was like no constructive criticism or anything like that was welcome, because, you know, when your emotional state is somewhere like with something that's eating you up inside, you start shutting everybody out and distancing yourself, thinking that's going to solve the problems, to not have support. And that's everything you need in those moments.
Yeah, totally. The next time I got pregnant, my first was a year old. I had started bleeding and went to the ER. They told me there was no heartbeat and that it stopped growing 4 weeks earlier. So they could either take it out with suction or I could wait a few days. Later, I was walking around with my daughter and just felt like a ball come out. I went to her grandma's house and it was a small ball of blood. I had a miscarriage and I thought it was my fault, that it was my punishment for messing up. I was almost 20 weeks and the baby stopped growing at 16. I don't know if that was because of the abortion or postpartum in general. Oh, I think this is something else with the depression. Because I had asked her, did she think she was so upset about having the abortion just because, you know, she had to make the choice, or was it just her postpartum that made her really fragile about everything? And I think that really had a lot to do with it, because at 4 months, like, you're still struggling so much mentally. Like, even at 3-4 years, look where we're at now, we're still trying to figure out what's happening, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking care of everything. Like, this guy doesn't have a job. He's not helping at all. She's up at 4 months. When you're up at 3 a.m., it should be to feed your baby and go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But no, she's taking her kid to childcare so she can go to work.
Wow.
And she just found out she was pregnant. And she has to make this crazy decision. I'm sure her postpartum... With no support. Through the roof.
Yeah. I think it was a very bad... it was like a combination for disaster.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
There was just no, you know, saying if it was just postpartum or if it was just guilt.
It was just, it was just, it was like a cocktail of disaster, you know, just a bad mix. The two things together was just, I'm sure it was a lot for her.
Yeah. But yeah, she said it might have been a combination of both, that she had just made that choice and just postpartum in general, because she loved her new baby so much that it made her feel awful for getting rid of another.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she knows how much love she could have for a person, and then this
one have to make the choice to say, oh, this one's not keepable, or oh, I don't want this one. Mm-hmm. It's tough.
Yeah. But when you realize that the guy... Okay, so I know this part of the backstory, that her baby's dad, at the same time that she was pregnant, had somebody else pregnant at the same time.
No.
So they're like... Her baby and the other girl's baby is like 2 months apart. So it's just like... It's crazy.
Wow.
Like, this is a guy that's out of control.
Yeah. Being reckless with people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trending topic on this episode.
Super reckless.
What the hell are people thinking, man? It's so messed up.
Yeah. And
that's what I'm saying. Like, clearly, this guy is not in the right state of mind to be making children with people. Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. So, I get it. Like, she already had one kid with him. Sees how he's not putting any effort into helping raise or provide or do any of those things, and now she's pregnant again from him.
Mm-hmm. Just 4 months later.
4 months later.
Like, I didn't even start having sex yet until, like, about that. They're like, 6 weeks, you're good to have sex.
I'm
and
like,
I'm like, emotionally, physically, no, I'm not. Maybe you're telling me, yes, it's fine, but I'm going to tell you, nobody's touching me.
Can you give me a doctor's note saying that you said I can't until 6 months?
Please.
Till I'm done nursing.
Man, it's crazy.
It is.
But for that to happen, and then she gets pregnant by him a third time and has this miscarriage, right?
Wow. So this is the third time.
The miscarriage is the third time that she's pregnant. Right? So she has the first one.
First one, abortion.
And now she's had the miscarriage.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So no one really knew about the miscarriage but the dad and his sister. So I didn't have to explain it to anyone or even talk about it. During the time, he was supportive and comforting. For once, I guess. I had the miscarriage in October and was pregnant again in April of the next year.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't tell anyone because I was scared of having another miscarriage. We had broken up after that miscarriage, and I was living with him for a few months. Oh, I wasn't living with him for a few months. During this time, we started hanging out again, and like 2 months before I got pregnant, we decided we were going to get back together. Then in April, we went to Vegas, and that's when I got pregnant. And by mid-May, he got arrested, and that's when he asked me if I was pregnant because he had been feeling like I was, and I waited until the end of May to go to the doctor, and I was almost 2 months pregnant.
Wow.
So this is pregnancy number 4. When he came out, we got a place. He started working, actually paying rent, so I can save up. He seemed like he had it all together, but he was cheating on me when I was pregnant and right after she was born.
Whoa.
And I can only imagine that all of this is putting so much on her mentally.
Right.
Like now this is 4 pregnancies in.
Hasn't probably recovered from the mental state that she was already in from the first situations. And now he's cheating on her. I can't.
He's a loser. Big fat loser.
Total.
When my second child was born, when she was a few months old, and I was working again, I decided to leave him. And that's when he beat me up and went to jail.
Whoa.
When he came out, he came back to the apartment a month later. I knew I had to leave him, so I saved up and planned. And as soon as her first birthday party happened, I left him. So it took me 3 months to leave. At this point, I was pregnant again. And she was born 6 months after I left him. I was out there alone until she turned 1. Then we decided to work on it again. It seemed like a million times better until he cheated on me again. But this time I caught him with my own eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Some other stuff unfolded, and eventually we officially split and we both moved on. So there was she messaged me a lot more, but I feel like that kind of went off topic as far as, keeping it focused on abortions.
Mm-hmm.
So I left that all out. Although I think it's really significant as far as her, stability.
Yeah.
And the support that she really needs, because I know he was in and out of her life, but I feel like more than anything, she probably felt guilty taking a dad away from their kids.
Definitely.
And I think that really had a lot to do with it. Okay, this man wants to be here for his kids. Who am I to say, no, you can't see them?
Yeah.
No matter how terrible
of a person he is. Yeah. She was sucking it up for them.
Yeah. I know. And we are definitely going to get to this topic because we talked to my mom about being in a, mentally abusive relationship.
Right.
And even this, he's hitting her. So physically. And,
just toxic relationships in general.
And I hope, my mom talked to this woman and told her, you're still young. I know you have kids and you want to fix it for them.
But you
like,
can't with him along on the ride.
Yeah, like, you got to get rid of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I almost wish somebody would have told my mom that.
Yeah, definitely.
And they probably did.
They did.
Yeah, I'm sure
they
they did.
many times. But that's the thing. It's like, until these women are really ready to just let go on their own. I mean, and that's what all you can keep doing is trying to get into their head to let them know that they deserve better, and to not put up with that, because someone will love you the right way.
Yeah.
You don't have to be abused in any way, shape, or form to receive love from anyone.
Right.
So I wish this woman the best of luck in everything, because she needs all the support and love she can get.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. But I mean, I don't know. I like that we commented like in between. It kind of like broke it up a little bit to let us focus on
how it all went
down.
together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Crazy story. You know, and it's sometimes some of us think like, oh, it's like, man, somebody else's story is a little rougher than mine, you know? You get to hear everyone's experiences.
Yeah. But so, she continued to get pregnant by this man, and only one time did she have the abortion, and she just beat herself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what would she have done with, like, at least he was supporting her a little bit financially once the other two came along.
Yeah. Do you know if he is now?
I know that they have like a child care agreement. I don't know about if he gives her like child support. He might, but they definitely have like their weekends and stuff. So
that's good.
They have some sort of agreement.
He's
but he's
putting
still,
in an effort now.
Yeah, but he's still like a
total douche.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. He's not making it easy.
That's unfortunate.
I know. Okay, but let's dissect this, I guess, as far as, I mean, the abortion goes still. And what else can we say about that for her?
I could say that we understand why she was feeling like 4 months old. Like, of course you're not ready to just go through all of those changes of your body. Your body is not even recovered from giving birth to that baby you just had, and you're supposed to wait 18 months between pregnancies. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. How long are Luna in?
I got pregnant like a couple weeks after Zoe turned 1.
So like 12
months, yeah. And I was supposed to wait. I read that like while I was pregnant with Luna, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even like recovered.
Yeah.
And think about it. It takes 9 months for our body to form that baby. And
yeah, I know for me, I think I was telling you guys, like, I didn't even feel like myself until after I had stopped breastfeeding. But maybe it was the 18 months thing, because I stopped breastfeeding at 17 months. So then after that is when I started feeling like myself and like
normal
good again.
Mm-hmm. Like a person again.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So it might not have even been the breastfeeding, but I was blaming it on that.
I know. And same thing with me with Luna. Like the whole time, it's like, it's such a long process. Like postpartum, all of that, all of the stresses, just mentally, physically, like you got to give your body some time. So I couldn't imagine having a 4-month-old and being like, congratulations, you're pregnant again. Like, oh my gosh. Oh,
right.
No.
Yeah, and I know one of our aunts too, she was also a teen mom, and then it was just like back to back. As soon as her son was born, she was pregnant again, and she kept that one, and they're just Irish twins.
Yeah.
Was born in the same year. And for her, like during her second pregnancy, her boyfriend was murdered, and she just was this teen girl now with 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm sure she wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
I mean, with him alive, yes, but I mean,
Yes.
like, she wouldn't have even thought about not keeping her kids.
Yeah.
I feel really bad that she went through this alone, because I would have loved to, be able
Been
to
there for
support
her.
her. Yeah. And, have, my...
I think like it it's just so hard sometimes, like I said, to tell people like what you're ashamed of, you know, like you're so embarrassed about what happened to you that you can't even put into words to tell people because you're so ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's just letting go of that vulnerability to be able to tell people. And when you spit it out, you feel so much better and human, you know?
So that's the thing that I believe bothers me about the pro-life thing, because that's giving women shame, you know, making me feel like, oh, why shouldn't I be able, you know, to do this? Oh, this is why I shouldn't do it. Okay, now
Shame
if I'm
on
gonna
you.
do it, then shame. So it's just, I have another friend who had an abortion because she was same thing, casual guy, and then she was like, oh shit, I'm pregnant. I don't even want to tell him. Like, I don't even really like this guy like that. It's just so whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't. And even now, like, she's in a serious relationship and has been for, like, probably close to 10 years already. And she's still like, I don't want any kids. And luckily, like, her, you know, her boyfriend is the same way. He's like, no, we just don't want kids. We're just dog parents. That's who we are. So it was a no-brainer for her, too. Like, she didn't feel the shame. She didn't have, you know, there was nobody there to be like, nah, like, make her feel bad. She was able to be open about it. Like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, good for you. I mean, if you know what you want, then
do it.
And I think that's, and I don't know if the shaming comes from like a religious point or what, or if it's just that we should feel guilty for.
I think it is. I think it all falls back to like the Bible and people believing that if God created something, then you're committed to it. Like you got yourself in that. But then again, it's like, what about the women that are victims of rape and incest and situations of not being ready in their life for this to be
like,
happening?
If we didn't create so much shame about it, would, you know, 2 of the 4 women that we talked about, would they have felt so horrible? Would they have been so depressed about it afterwards?
Yeah.
Would they have been looking for somebody to tell me I'm not?
Tell me I'm not
tell me I'm a good
freaking
person
jerk.
still.
Yeah.
And if we weren't, you know, shamed into feeling that way, like, they would probably be like, okay, cool. Like, I made an informed decision.
And I'm going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I hope they all can sleep good at night knowing they did what was best for them at the moment in life.
So when we were looking up the facts about the abortions, I saw this thing about pro-life arguments and saying like what kind of effect it has on people if you do have an abortion. And it was just silly because it sounded like that is for either side. You know, you can't really just say, oh, if you have an abortion, you're going to feel this way. So it just says, what are the risks associated with abortion? This is from the Pro-Life Action League. Among the physical risks of abortion are infection, perforation of the uterus, hemorrhage, cervical incompetence, cancer, and even death. Okay. Well, you could die having the baby, right? You could also hemorrhage after you give birth. Like, those things are, you can get infections. All that could also happen, like,
During
if you go
labor.
through with the pregnancy, right? Among the psychological risks are depression, nervous disorder, sleep disturbances, sexual dysfunction, alcohol and drug abuse, eating disorders, child neglect or abuse, divorce, or chronic relationship problems, suicide. And I think that those are all still very valid things to say for somebody who goes through with a pregnancy. Like, if you don't want to have a baby and you're forced to,
now you're in this situation to raise this kid you don't want, and now you're just like this bitter human being.
And then you can't keep a relationship because you're just like,
and now you have no help with the child.
Right.
So
it's you can neglect them. You could end up an alcoholic too because you can't deal with the crying,
the emotions,
or whatever.
Yep.
And then there's women that, I mean, like, the other thing too is that it's just so hard for me to put it into words, like all the different points where they're just like, some people are okay, yes, you can have birth control, and other people are like, no, there's no birth control. That's part
What?
of, yeah, like you can't even have birth control. You just have to figure it out. If you get pregnant, you get pregnant, have the baby. It's part of God's plan.
Wow.
And those are the people who live on farms and have 20 kids. But
they're like, where
Yeah.
sex is like not for like what?
yeah, but
it's
then
like,
you read stories about like those women who abuse their kids and let their boyfriends like abuse their kids, and then I know you've seen articles like that.
yeah,
Like where like, okay, this kid was found dead in a closet, like tied up and done whatever, but because these people should not have a child.
right.
And
I agree.
it's crazy for us to tell them you have to.
Yeah. It's like you could be saving. I mean, it's like, yeah, they might have the child and end up murdering it down the line because now they're just mentally damaged for just derailing their life in a way they didn't want at the moment. So it's tough.
Yeah. A lot of feelings for, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you tell those women? Oh, what I was going to say, too, was at the top of the birth control thing. Like, for one of my friends, her sister, she started having kids really young. And after she had 2, she was like, okay, can I get my tubes tied? I'm really young and I think I'm done. Like, this is a lot of kids. And they're like, no, you're too young. Like, how do you know you don't want to have kids in the future? Like, why can't you let her make that decision for herself?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I should. I don't think I can financially have, like, who should have more than 2 kids in California?
Mm-hmm. I told my mom the same thing. I was like, I want to tie my tubes after I have my second baby. She's like, they won't tie your tubes. You're too young. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're too young. They will not do the procedure on you. They'll say, no, you're going to change your mind. What if you want more kids in the future?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
my mind is made up about my plans for my life. Right. Like, I know what I want. And it's like, I don't really want to be on a birth control for the rest of my life if I know I don't want any kids.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And they won't let you. Like, if you're under a certain age and they think you're going to change your mind down the road, you're going to want more kids. Like,
it's like,
yeah, but I shouldn't. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, like,
I'm going to be over 30 and having more and more kids. Like, no, that's not really where I plan.
Yeah. And then that girl that they told her, no, she can't get her tubes tied, she ended up having 2 more kids.
Wow.
So now she's like under 25 with 4 kids.
No.
And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what her, like, deal is at all. I don't know much about her. She's just like a sister of one of my friends, but it's not fair that they're just like, no, you can't do this yet.
Giving us
and even that my friend that I told you that doesn't want to have any kids, her boyfriend is like, okay, like, I want to get a vasectomy, and they're like, you don't have any kids, you're not married,
can't do it.
You can't do it.
It's crazy.
And it's like, dude, if you're informed and you know
I am not a person who wants to raise a child. I know I want to be able to have sex with no commitments. Can you do this on me? I don't understand why we can't use our voice to say that's what we want.
Especially if vasectomies are reversible.
Right.
You're going to tell them no?
Can you reverse tying your tubes? I think that one's harder, right?
But
I think you could too.
Yeah. I don't know much about that, but I think there is a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's just like, come on, bro. How are you going to tell us, no, we can't do all these things, but also, no, you have to have this baby?
It's unfortunate.
It is. Well, let us get on to our next part of this next time.
All right, guys. Well, we are going to leave you with that. We know there was a lot of sharing, a lot of different stories and different insights of everyone's feelings. And I think it's nice that in most of these stories, they shared also the men's side and their emotions attached to the situation, which is good because I think it's all, of course, about the women because it's our bodies. But it's nice to hear that the guys have their emotions as well.
Yeah, totally. Until next time, I think next time is going to be where we are going to hear from Brianna and Vanessa. So we'll keep this one just us and the stories.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll break it up for you guys like that. And so stay tuned to hear from Crazy Bree and a little bit of Vanessa too.
Yes.
All right, guys, stay moody.
Stay moody. Say Moody Mommies.
Moody Mommies.
Moody Mommies podcast.